in this. There's a lot here.
Yes,
FJet, right?
yep, yep.
Okay, he is here, okay, we have representation.
And Noah's there.
And Noah's there.
I didn't see it.
All right, we're going to get started. I want to start by going over the minutes. So we have a revised draft of the minutes from the April 17th meeting. Did anyone have any issues with the revision?
I don't know, Petra had a revision, so I don't know if she's on.
She's on.
She's on. But she can't comment, is that it?
Comment on
She
it.
can comment? Okay.
Petra, did you have a comment?
I did submit my update to Coco.
Get it, Coco?
Yes, it's included in the revised minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. There we go.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 17th, 2023's meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And then the next set of minutes I have is the April 24th minutes.
I have a revision on my statement where it's under 4, it's the second
Paragraph.
So I think it should be corrected to make the point I made. Member Hoffman referred to her submitted comments about how the chapter starts with several unexamined assumptions, such as the need for a central wastewater system. Given the current controversy over the Nitrex versus IA systems, this is very politicized. I just want to make it clear, that's all. And I can send it in.
Okay.
You're not refereeing.
I think there are some spelling, grammatical things we can correct if you want. Bother with that.
Did anybody else have any changes or comments?
On the spelling and grammatical, I think you can just email that right to Coco. We don't need to bring that up publicly, waste people. Unless you think it changes the meaning, that's the only.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes with Lily's correction?
I make that motion.
Subject to her submitting the typo.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we're going back to the natural environments action item section. What?
Point of order.
Yes, Jan?
Okay, so a number of people submitted comments. Those comments were only posted on our website 10 minutes ago.
Mhm.
I think the public should have a right to get familiar with the public comments submitted, and only then we can discuss it. So I would propose that we move the discussion to the following on the meeting on the phone.
No, we're going to discuss them tonight, and we're going to look at these comments while we discuss the chapter. So they'll be included. They'll also be sent directly to the consultants with the chapter.
Yes, but the public has a right to see those comments and have a chance to get familiar with them and so forth.
And the clerk has a right to have an order.
To post them, and they were only posted 10 minutes ago, so.
We have other
I-
responsibilities.
Could you please do not interrupt me when I'm.
No, I don't think that's possible.
Could we,
Because you should wait till the end of the meeting. Now you've said you say.
I did say his name.
Some of the public review process, okay?
Yes, and they will remain on the website for the duration of this practice for the public to comment on and to read and to review. So they will be there. We're not hiding anything. We're not taking them down. They will be there for the duration of the process. They will be submitted to the consultants, and they will be considered in this whole discussion.
so maybe, just a comment, maybe going forward from now, we can try to get the comments at least a day, 24 hours.
His comments were posted last night.
Okay,
That's a
So
little,
we can try,
If we did
I
it
know.
Friday before, they still wouldn't have been posted.
Okay, because several
Yes, but other
people,
people posted
wrote
comments
me
a
a
week ago, okay? And you still did not update the law.
Comment noted, thank you. All right. So we went through goals and objectives at the last meeting. So we're going to start with action items tonight.
Thank you, Sean. That was really a good email.
Yeah, Sean sent over a, essentially like a consolidated list of the comprehensive plan goals and objectives for Southold. And I included it at the end of the natural environment chapter so people could see it as like a possible template, or they had some really great ideas that we could adopt into our plan.
So I kind of had 2 points. First on that, I wanted the latter's content, but first I want to just talk organization of it. I know we've kind of gone with the, challenges, findings, and then we do mention goals and objectives, and we have our action items. It was more apparent in this chapter than any. I mean, it looked like a lot of those action items were just copy and pasted from subordinate documents. I didn't even count all of them. It's 40 some.
There's a lot.
So in looking at a better way to communicate effectively, what are we looking at here? And I also wanted to familiarize myself with some of the stuff that DFJ's worked on, like the Southampton Village, and was it Nassau County as well. They've structured things a couple of ways. So if Noah's on, I'm going to, like his, input on format as well. But so I looked at Southold again, and the more I read that one, I really think that is a solid plan organizationally. I really like that. So I sent it out. I might apologize. I didn't do this until like yesterday or the day before. It's in the, I did it late. I had a good idea late. That's all right. So they have the goals, they have the objectives, and then I'm trying to pull it up now. And at the end they have,
Here, Coco, I'll share my screen.
yeah, maybe we can go through it.
Great.
And the way they do it is the entire chapter, it kind of flows. They talk about whatever the chapter is. In this case, I just pulled the natural environment. And then they have the goals, and it kind of reads throughout the comment. It'll be more apparent once they pull it up.
Can you see that? Okay. And I saw that, I believe Noah had his hand up.
Noah and Petra.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, sorry, I'm not going to be able to talk too much tonight because I'm on childcare duties tonight. So I'll chime in as I can, but Emily is also on. As far as the format of the plan goes, we are kind of working on like the first big chapter of the one that deals with quality of life and governance and what else? Historic and cultural resources. And I think once we finish that first chapter, it'll kind of give you an idea of kind of the structure. What we've done is essentially tried to move a lot of stuff up to the front that were kind of the major takeaways. So you don't, kind of like an executive summary, so you don't have to kind of decipher them after reading, 30 or so pages. And then we have kind of the existing conditions and summary of issues. And then we go into a little bit more detail on the recommendations compared to what was provided before. So we kind of flush out a lot of those ideas. But, so we've done some reorganization, some editing. We brought in some new stuff. The chapter might look a little bit different. The content was, the source material is all there, but it's just been kind of moved around. And I would say, as far as looking at our prior plans, I think that's helpful to do, although, we it's not like we have a cookie cutter approach. We want to make sure we do something that makes the most sense for Shelter Island, and considering that we're already starting from a good place, we have more time to think about kind of the crafting of the narrative. So for what it's worth, we're going to spend a bit of time to make sure it reads well.
Noah, do you have a timeline on that, on us seeing a rough draft of that?
Yeah, I can get something soon. I was kind of waiting to the end of this kind of round of meetings because I wasn't sure if something would come up that I could incorporate, but I could probably get you, just a Word draft and kind of a template at InDesign just to show you kind of like how it'll be laid out, as soon as this week, like the end of the week.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
And the other part I was looking at the end of each chapter, they go through all the objectives. Objectives that stand on their own, they just state it. Other objectives that require a little more explanation and then a little more historical background, they go and explain that as necessary, which I really liked. And at the end, they identify responsible parties. Whether it's the town board, which committee, they identify it right there. And then possible partnerships as well. Whether it's the Nature Conservancy or,
Whatever.
the PEP or, a lot of, so I think it's overall that flowed very well. I thought it communicated very effectively. I'd be interested to see what you guys come up with and how, sure things will be a work in progress.
The recommendations and the, who's responsible and so on, that's something that we typically do at the end because we kind of know the most, as we're in the end of the process. And so we'll just kind of hold off on that till we'll have a list of recommendations and we'll start to fill it out. But it's usually something that we'll do towards the end, and it'll be, a matrix that just kind of has all of that information. But so I guess what I'm saying is that won't be in this draft, but we are intending to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only thing I wanted to say, and I'll be done for a while, was just on the content side. Shelter Island's unique, but we're talking about the natural resources, and there is a tremendous amount of overlap with Southold in that respect, both on the water side and the land side, which they separated it into water and then land as two separate parts of the same chapter. Separate goals, separate objectives. But there is a tremendous amount of overlap. I think a lot of their goals and objectives, we share a lot of the same data sources on it. I think some of it can be almost cookie cutter. Obviously, we'll have to review everything and whatnot. But and then there's a lot of stuff too, I think, with minimal revision could transfer over. And I'm talking about stuff, if you look at their goals and objectives, stuff about, preserving the environment and so forth, a lot of stuff that transfer.
I thought what we could do today is kind of go through some of the goals that we have and then go through the goals that they have, because they do have a lot more for the natural environment than, we're missing a lot in that chapter. And a lot of our goals actually, like you said, overlap with their goals. So, there's some that they have that I think would be great added to ours. So,
Well, this was a great get, but there are a lot of things referenced in here, a lot of resources and studies that, but we haven't read yet.
I know.
And may not.
I know for the economic chapter, when Petra, three of us were working on it, we referred to the Southold plan because it was more, but it was the exact format that was very, very, very useful.
And Ben, I don't want to get the perception that I'm just saying that we need to just copy and paste and go with it. I'm definitely not suggesting that. But I think it's a good starting point for us and for the consultants as well, because they do list a lot of their data sources as well.
Well, that was my question. I assume the consultants are going to walk us through this and help us with all the reference data.
Because it's our job to provide the slice of our community input, and they're the ones who kind of put the sausage together, and then we give them more input. And so I think it's really on the consultants to do a majority of the assembling of this.
That's great. One area in which we probably have more needs than they do, just giving it a quick look, is wetlands. Given the shape and geography of our island compared to the North Fork.
And the other thing I noticed.
So I think that we might have to put a little more effort into the wetlands.
The other thing I noticed too is I think we're more well dependent. They have Suffolk County water to a greater extent.
Right.
So like our first groundwater action item, they don't cover that.
Right.
So that's something we would, we would leave in there because it's unique to us. Meaning under our groundwater action item, continue to monitor the water table levels. and implement water use restrictions as indicated.
So let's go through our action items first, and then we can go through, okay. So we only have one environmental action item listed. Engage the New York DEC and local resources to explore establishing a controlled burning program. And we do understand that that's complicated because of their new regulations and restrictions.
1 second, are you not going through the document you gave us? Because I have my list according, what is on the screen now?
These are the action items for the chapter.
But what I made, my 2 pages of notes, I referred to the combined chapters with pages.
Okay,
So what are we?
well, then sort out how to integrate that into the action items of the chapter.
I thought you wanted comments on this document. So I have it page.
For natural,
Well,
Okay.
no, the comments were for the action items in the chapter. But that was a reference or a resource to use to add to the comments on the chapter.
if you thought we were missing something or,
Right.
you know, that sort of thing.
So this first action,
Jumping around, I did a lot of work on it
So
to do.
What are we looking at? This is different than what was posted on the website?
this is our working SharePoint document that the committee writes comments on and such.
it's page 26,
Yes,
something like that.
23.
The chapter.
You have to understand that the committee has a working document, the public doesn't have access. We work on the backside and work and give our comments that we share. And then when it's ready, when we merge it up, it goes out. So you're seeing a document. This is,
Without our edits and without our comments on it.
so before this meeting, we've been, the red and the blue has been us communicating with each other.
So what I see is different than what he sees.
Are you looking at the SharePoint or?
Yeah, I'm looking at the SharePoint. I'm online right now.
Not online, when you go to share,
In the SharePoint document.
Natural
SharePoint.
Resources chapter editing version
Which she has
1,
on the screen.
23, 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if what's in the SharePoint is not what
No, it's not.
they're looking at something different.
Right, they have the PDF version without our comments and notes and edits on it.
Okay.
Before we get into it, I think we can all agree this chapter needs a lot of work
Yes.
still, and we've provided a lot of comments already.
Yep.
I know we're not going to get bogged down in it right now. We're going to give the consultants time to construct and kind of interpret a lot of our, when do you think we're going to get another stab at this? Because
Well,
I know it's not a one and done.
No, it's not. What I'd like to do is go through our action items, determine which ones we want to keep, which ones we want to get rid of or change or alter in some way, and try to go through the ones from Southold and see if we want to incorporate those into our plan and kind of get that done tonight. And then we'll give it to the consultants to organize and sort out.
I spent hours and hours on this according to the instructions that came with this, the sheet, which I think I have here. Look through the 2 and pair. I have all sorts of tabs and questions. I didn't know we were going to consider the Southold tonight, or I would have spent another few hours looking through those.
But what you have there, Lily,
So I'm not ready to go through all of this and dispense
that's action items, right?
quickly. No, I'm just saying,
That's still useful. I mean, that's.
I'm glad, yes, and I typed some of them up.
Yeah, no,
That's right, I was looking for a place to put them online, but I couldn't. Okay, but the point is, I'm not sure we'll be able to do all of this.
Okay, well, we're going to go through each one by one, so hopefully they'll correlate to some of the work you've done.
Okay,
And we'll see if we're missing something that you have touched on.
okay.
So the first action item under groundwater action items is 1, continue to monitor water table levels and implement water use restrictions as indicated. I guess I would say in the drought monitoring plan.
Yeah,
The first one.
according to the recent,
Sorry.
you know.
What about the controlled burn one?
Oh, right.
You all okay with that?
Right.
I am.
I mean, my question is, don't we have a no controlled burn policy right now?
So,
No.
no, it's,
I think you can do it if you get approved.
So the
There has to be a whole plan.
Yeah, so the problem is the state, we briefly hashed over it last time, but my understanding, Rebo, fill me in if I skip anything, but there isn't a no, you can do it under certain circumstances, and the DC will assist, especially municipalities, to control invasives for, specifically for ticks, for health concern reasons like that. The issue with why it's so difficult now to do it is they added several layers of paperwork and safety measures, and you have to plan it so many months in advance. And the most important thing with burning is the temperature and the weather conditions. So you have to plan something, 3 months in advance, gather all these resources for, a week time. And if the weather doesn't cooperate, then you're out a lot of money, which has been the case a long time ago with the Nature Conservancy, the last time they stopped doing it. I mean, they spent thousands and thousands of dollars prepping a controlled burn, had everything together, and the weather didn't cooperate and they weren't able to burn, and it was a loss. So it's not impossible. It just, there's a lot more that goes into it now.
And that's for not municipalities, but for the residents. I mean, the Nature Conservancy, the people.
It's the same.
Okay.
As far as I understand, the same requirements.
The Deer Intake Committee discussed that at our last meeting, if you want to go back to YouTube and watch the recording, but what Sean is saying is correct. And the other issue is that there are a lot of homeowners who want to do it, but then we determine that their property is not the right size. So you can't just burn on, a tiny little parcel next to your neighbor, because you could set their property on fire. So like you say, it can only be done at certain times of the year. And we did create a list. We do have a list of about 18 or 20 homeowners that showed an interest in wanting to burn. But again, it's a very complicated process. So, but that list is still there. We can put you on it if you want. It hasn't happened yet, but.
And I'm not sure that action item belongs in this chapter. That was going to be my other point. But, again,
But it, like we
as
just
we're
said,
massaging.
if you separate land and water, it does fall under land because that is one of your natural resources.
Yeah, so it's
And it
controlling
affects health.
invasives.
We're talking about controlling tick populations and things. This is a huge item. And as you,
Also just add that the public has expressed interest in this a number of times. So I believe it came up a year ago and I brought it as an agenda item on the Deer Intake, and I made sure that Bo got a list because I didn't want to ignore people. So there really is an interest. So I think it does have to be in there somewhere.
Yes.
I agree with you because it's something that it rotates over time and becomes something that people talk about, needs to be discussed. Ticks, also about forest health, grassland health. There's all these things that it can be mixed into. So I think it should, coming from my neck of the woods.
And a side note, my understanding, I talked to one of the directors of Mashamik the other day, and she noted that there's a qualification of burn boss, which is someone who can oversee the entire burn operation. There are currently 2 certified in the state right now. One of them lives on Shelter Island. We know him very well. He's familiar with the habitat. He is a phenomenal resource, and we have him locally. And I know for a fact if Gallagher.
Yeah.
Is that decision that Michelle made by the local board, or did it come down?
Yeah.
No, so
Right now.
Right now, yeah.
the Nature Conservancy not burning anymore on property became more of like a Long Island decision, and then the state of New York didn't burn down here. We just didn't have the staffing because, yes, you'd plan for 3 months, you'd get everybody in one spot, and all of a sudden it's like, up, the wind changed, everybody go home. And so that type of management just did not work. Excuse me?
It sounds like a sailboat, right?
In the past, you would just wait for the right weather conditions and be like, all right, today's the day.
Like Matt.
And get the fire department and get, as many people together as possible. But, that kind of impromptu action is not good anymore, I guess.
So I was going to say, but the Nature Conservancy burns in other states across the country. So Cody Miller, our new conservation stewardship manager, she's been on other burn teams, and she actually travels and participates in burns in other places. So she's interested to, bring fire back and see what we can do. So
She should talk to Together, maybe they can work on it together.
I know, but it's, it's, as like Sean says, we were all kind of bringing it all and trying to discuss it and see, what are the realities, but.
So are we good with that one?
Burn it.
Burn it. Burn it. All right, so we're gonna move down to the second item. Revise the irrigation law to, okay, so this one we definitely need to address because okay. It says right now, revise the irrigation law to prohibit irrigation as trucked in water just puts a strain on our neighboring town's supplies. So the original version was revise the irrigation law to prohibit well-drawn irrigation in the nearshore overlay. So that's essentially sundowning the grandfathering law so that you can't have well-drawn irrigation in the nearshore because that's what is taxing the nearshore and creating saltwater intrusion. And so this has been added on to and commented to the point where I think it's been lost in comment.
There are comments in the current sheet
Right.
that you may want to adjust.
Yes.
I think I remember
Yes, there are.
something.
And there's also an action item on the Southhold plan that I thought works well with this too, which was the consider mandatory water conservation measures for residential irrigation. It's kind of like a blanket statement. But I think the more direct version is kind of like the sundowning on the grandfathered well-drawn irrigation clause.
Wait, so where will we end up then? Because
So what it would end up being is just revise the irrigation law to prohibit well-drawn irrigation in the nearshore overlay. Period. So then you could have cisterns, you could have trucked in water, you can have, collect roof runoff if you want to and use that to irrigate, but it eliminates the well-drawn irrigation, which causes the salting of people's wells.
I'm good with that.
So are we okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to adjust.
It's amazing the way it just vanishes.
I know, I'm like, where'd it go? What's Meg doing?
Check your change. Stop jumping.
I know, what's that?
I don't know, it's spazzing.
Yeah.
There you go. You revise the irrigation law to prohibit well-drawn irrigation in the nearshore overlay.
Stop.
It's true. Working hard. Number 3, partner with Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation to upgrade the existing sewer plant in the Heights and explore alternative methods of disposing of the treated effluent. So this is kind of an extension of a conversation that's been going on with the Heights for a long time, and it's kind of just keeping on that desire to have them upgrade the system to a more effective treatment method. Are there suggestions to modifying?
Well, did you speak with them recently? As far as I know, with a conversation about 6 months ago or so with Stella, that's off the table.
I think the fertigation is off the table, but I think the desire to upgrade the system ultimately is still something that people would like to.
With the emerging
Look at.
contaminants, PFOAs, you're gonna
Yes,
have to, so it's a matter of time. and
Use
that's
the
gonna-
groundwater on the Goat Hill Golf
Right.
Course. This has always been a desire. Absolutely.
But that's probably not gonna happen simply because we have Southern County Water Authority is now pumping at the bottom of the hill there.
Well, in West Neck Water District and the Heights both take their public water source from Goat Hill. So that's why using that effluent from the wastewater treatment system to fertilize Goat Hill is not the best option because it's going to require significant testing. And so it's kind of cost prohibitive. But just the desire to upgrade the plant itself is always kind of.
It just says upgrade and explore.
So upgrade.
This is a 10-year look forward.
Yes.
Like, they might want to, not want to talk to us now, but hopefully in a few years they will.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, good.
All right. So number 4, identify high volume water users to target future education funding and support.
How?
That was a question.
Can't you just put in garbage by country?
It's a great pie in the sky concept, but it may not just be. It could be, homeowners with extensive gardening and irrigation. It could be restaurants. It could be the school. It could be,
Right.
any businesses or industries on the island that use a lot of water. I mean, marinas use a lot of water.
That could be general for everybody
Right.
to implement water conservation practices,
So
programs,
maybe-
education.
Yeah, so maybe instead of identify high volume water users, maybe just target water responsible education or something of that nature.
And wasn't there something like that? Was it in the cell phone one?
Yes,
That was good language, I
they
think.
had very good language. Develop water conservation and educational demonstration sites is one of theirs, which I liked.
Above it.
Work with Suffolk County Water Authority to implement water conservation practices and programs. Support the Peconic Estuary Program initiatives for water conservation practices.
The way they, sorry,
Yeah.
like,
No,
the way they have set it up too is it's not just bullet like this is just consolidated. After like that one, it will explain exactly what some of those programs are. So there's a little narrative that will fill in the blank a little bit, which is one of the things I like. It kind of, qualifies, exactly what we mean by, this objective.
That's great.
The WIC proposes that we get water meters on people's individual properties. And at one time, they thought it would be mandated. I don't know how that will go over, but it was one of their suggestions that's in their report. And I don't know how we implement that, maybe do it on a volunteer basis, collect data, that way we can across an idea of what people are using presently, whether they're a high person or not. But we also have another problem, is that for years, we've been granting people temporary irrigation systems for them to establish their plants, and then they're supposed to turn them off.
A lot of people.
It doesn't happen. So,
I don't know about that.
it's a policing issue. Some of them do.
Let's get it established and.
Yeah, it's something that, too bad we don't have this manpower to really police that. And I'd like, we need more policing, sorry, Sean. But I mean, it's just one of those things that.
It's not you.
Actual
When
fluid.
you're not busy.
It's a building department.
Yeah.
No, I know, I had a customer that the insurance company mandated that they put on an automatic remote valve. So it also counts and tells you what comes through the system.
That's good.
So you have a logging of what your water usage is. And then if the pipe bursts in the house, it's supposed to turn it off after a certain amount of flow.
That's good.
At least something like that would give the
Yeah.
homeowner something to look at and say, oh, this is what's going on.
Super expensive.
$500.
Well, that's not bad.
How does all,
Plus the plumbing.
yeah, just raise a sensitive subject. How does all of this water usage, I remember fairly recently that Gardner's Bay was asking for, I think, a major increase in water
6 million gallons.
usage. And we talk about, water usage and identifying. Who did they ask for their increase and how is this justified or,
So I'm involved with that.
yeah,
So there's a application going to the DEC. The DEC will ultimately, they regulate the gallons. So
That's step one.
based on the hydrology study that we had done, a professional hydrology study, not just some whimsical pulling a number out of the sky. They've come up with a very safe number that we could pull without affecting anybody.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of safeties that are built into it.
so it's handled by the state, not by Suffolk County.
Correct,
And you had to give some sort of study to back it up.
correct.
But if it's in the near shore overlay, now, Gulf Country Club isn't really there, or is it? I don't know where that line is.
I don't think so.
It's not.
But if your wells were not in it, would
Yeah,
that,
the wells aren't.
yeah, so then maybe they would be exempt from that anyway.
All right, I'm going to circle back to point number 4. So I did some modifying. It says, develop education, funding, and support for water conservation programs.
Yeah.
Does that sound like
Yeah.
what we're thinking?
Sure.
The next item, number 5, includes Suffolk County Local Law Number 41-2007, a local law to reduce nitrogen pollution by reducing the use of fertilizers in Suffolk County into our town code, and provide town oversight or enforcement of Suffolk County ban on the application of fertilizers between November 1st and April 1st. So we are not allowed, by the DEC, we are not allowed to regulate or restrict pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, but we can do our own fertilizer control. So that's something that the town wants to look into, especially in the near shore area. So that's what this action item is sort of geared toward. And it's more towards adopting the Suffolk County law on a local level so that it's in our codes. So when people go to look, do they have fertilizer regulations? Well, it mimics the county regulation as a point of reference for people.
Could you repeat that? We, as a town, cannot control
Pesticide.
Herbicides, pesticides.
I understand about the spraying and usage, you have to have a licensed person.
Right.
But if the town wanted to make a blanket thing, no more, anywhere, no way.
We're not allowed to. No, the DEC won't allow it.
This is the thought behind that, I think, is that if there's a, sort of the state has decided to control mosquitoes this summer, and we say, yeah, everywhere but not here, then their efforts could be sort of doomed, if you know what I mean, because then we're going to grow mosquitoes and they're going to go everywhere.
I understand on a health crisis, something like that, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
worrying about,
I agree.
people tend to misuse them when they have access to them. They unfortunately,
Oh, yeah.
2 cups must be better than 1 cup type thing. It's just a natural thing people do.
Unfortunately, because we looked into it because it was something that we wanted to address. And
So again,
we
back
were
to
told
education
that
on that, I guess we have to really.
Yeah, education.
So, but as far as the fertilizer use goes too, pH has a huge role in the fertilizer uptake for lawns. I mean, that basically, I think what we're talking about.
Right.
So if you have a pH that's running around 5-ish, you may only use a very small percentage of the available nitrogen because it gets tied up in the soil. Or if you have a soil that's around 7, you're effectively using available nitrogen that's in the soil.
Right.
Without really adding it. So the pH is something that homeowners can do that would improve the nitrogen uptake without having to add as much.
Right.
Any-
So that
That requires a soil test.
That's education.
Yeah.
Parallel to
So
that.
just to clarify, so the only thing that we can do is educate, we can't control
Pesticides, but fertilizers we could.
fertilizers.
We could,
Okay. So just by adopting this Suffolk County.
Right.
To us.
right. It just kind of makes it more redundant so that when people check our code for regulations, we have some guideline. And then just kind of enforcing the fact that Suffolk County has a ban on the application of fertilizers between November 1st and April 1st. So that's something, and there are places that do already consider that, like the hardware store has signs up starting November 1st, can't fertilize, we don't sell fertilizer, that whole thing.
This kind of goes with it. Work with regulatory agencies and institutions to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus loads to groundwater due to residential fertilizer.
Yeah, which one was that? That was.
Southhold.
10,
10?
goal 210, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have that noted. Yeah, and that also goes with work with regulatory agencies and the golf course industry to reduce fertilizer, pesticide, and herbicide use on property management. So, those.
Merge those together in some way.
Yep, we can take those out of Southhold and put them in ours. All right. The next one is number 6, reduce the discharge of volatile organic compounds and other regulated and unregulated contaminants to groundwater through education and town code modification. So this is kind of educating people on the proper disposal of contaminants. Don't dump paint down the sink, don't pour gasoline in your driveway to kill your plants, things like that.
That should be combined with our own item number 9, because they're quite similar.
Yes, educate and encourage proper, yeah. So let's-
It almost, we have so much educate, I'm serious.
We do need a whole
We could
section
almost have,
that's
it could almost be a groundwater action item, educate, and then lists
Yes.
where the public could use some,
Sounds
That's what those
yeah.
consultants are gonna do. They're gonna clean this up. Oh, yeah.
Because, your head does kind of spin after a while.
Okay.
That goes along with, excuse me, if I can just add something from the other books, page 44, that call for an inventory of environmental information, which would be one way of putting it. Let's see what, page 44, which is all the needed environmental and
Yes,
for the community.
that's a great idea.
So develop an inventory.
It's action item, here, develop, action point 20. This was from the 2008 analysis. Action point 20, C7, develop a centralized inventory of environmental information. And they go on for page with, you know, what's involved there, but it includes, including mapped information and a system for keeping it updated. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's out there. It's not centralized though.
Right.
It's all spread.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and indexed,
Indexed.
kind of key.
So I added that kind of under the educate on and encourage the proper use and disposal of lawn and other household chemicals. I'll put all the educational ones together when we're done. I'll kind of like group them all. And then I added develop a centralized inventory of environmental information to that. And I put a note to look up the 2008 recommendation and kind of include that.
Right.
All right. Number 10, revisit the requirement of permeable surface driveways in the nearshore overlay because people are more likely to use pesticide and weed killer on them. Consider allowing hard surface driveways with mandatory water capture and recharge via trench drains and dry wells, redirection into rain gardens and swales or other forms of water collection and recharge. So this one came to me from someone in, I don't remember if it was the Water Advisory Committee or WQI, who lives in the nearshore overlay, and they said, I have all these friends who have gravel driveways, and they're always either pulling their weeds or spraying them, or, you know, and if they just had a solid driveway, they wouldn't be spraying so much. So we have a regulation in our current town code that if you live in the nearshore, you have to have a permeable driveway to increase recharge. That was the thought process. But if you have a hard driveway and you still have water capture, then maybe reduce the spraying and you still have recharge. So that's why that was considered.
And plus also many gravel driveways with through use, they get compacted to get dust and dirt, and then they become permeable. You know, the water just sits there and puddles on them. It doesn't go through at all, so.
Yeah.
There was a hand.
Don? Yeah.
So I don't know who came up with this idea, but I don't think it's a good idea because if you have code specifically prohibits this and for a good reason. Because if you have unpermeable driveway, then you have a runoff. And there's a much simpler way to solve this weed problem. You know, you just scoop up gravel to the side, put the anti-weed fabric, put the gravel back, and you're done. Okay, and so it's still permeable and you don't have a weed problem. So why do we need to allow, you know, asphalt hard surface? I really don't think it's a good idea.
Okay. I do know that over time, even if you have the weed barrier down under the gravel, weeds will still grow in the rocks because dirt blows in, seeds blow in, birds drop things on it. And so it still grows. It's easy to pull, but most people don't want to go and pull all the weeds in their driveway, so they spray. That's just where this stemmed from. So.
Yeah, I would like to.
Is there a difference in water quality from like the dry wells based on if it permeated all the way from the surface down because it's not going through those layers of soil?
It's
I mean, is it
better than it's
negligible
supposed to.
or is it?
I mean, it's better if it permeates through the soil because plants will fixate a lot of things.
That's how the water
Yeah.
gets flushed out
In
before
a
it's.
dry well, you don't have that organic layer that has the microbes in it scrubbing.
Right, so if you kind of skip all over that and put it immediately in a dry well,
It's like
are you putting dirtier water?
It's like an injection needle.
French
I
drain?
don't know, it's a.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually better off with rain gardens and
Yeah.
swales, like to like direct the water to a low part of your yard and make that a space where it just naturally permeates through. So then you get that. clean.
Vaconic, sorry, you mentioned rain gardens, the Vaconic
Yeah.
Estuary Program has a lot of great programs. I know one, they have grants for homeowners who do want to install rain gardens and whatnot to capture roof runoff, and they'll give you, I think, up to $500 to purchase it. I think everyone in Shelter Island qualifies.
This could be in an inventory.
Yeah.
You see, this could be
different available
remediation efforts
resources.
and everything. It could be added to. In fact, one could have a school program for green environment that could have people finding out all these
Yeah.
things and adding to an inventory.
Yeah, and we have a lot of great committees that know all this.
Right.
Just collect it.
It's a matter of getting it out there.
That's great.
I've done those permeable paving driveways. And it has about 8-9 inches of crushed gravel underneath the paving surface itself. So that retains all the water. It really holds up pretty well. But some of the problem can be driveway surface is too steep. So you're never going to be able to hold on certain percentages of grade.
Yeah.
So those ones are going to have the solid surfaced. And then based on the surface area that you're looking to collect, probably should be some kind of dry well at the bottom.
Yeah, but typically people install dry wells to hold like 1 inch of water or half an inch of water, and then once in a while, have like 5 inches of water coming in 45 minutes, and you have terrible runoff going straight to the bay. Okay, so that's why I think it's really not a good idea. It's just like,
You're not going to be able to collect that water anyway. So typically when we get those 5 inches of rain, we're in August and the soil's hydrophobic. So the water is not accepted. You're not going to get it down half an inch. So all that water is going to run anyway. So the idea is to be able to get it into something that's permeable to where you can collect some of it. So let's say you get 4 of the 5 inches, you're still going to have some runoff. There's just no way we can collect 5 inches unless you engineer for it.
still, I would say that the permeable driveway, particularly long driveway, helps a lot.
You would be better off scalloping out a little low depression somewhere on the side or somewhere that's not compacted, that the water flows into. That's a better solution out of all of this, because that's a permeable grass surface typically. That's going to get filtered all the time. And usually if you make the kettle big enough, you can hold quite a volume of water.
Yeah.
But a lot of that goes into the pre-planning
Yeah.
of the site.
And it's in here, swales, trench drains, it's in this suggestion. Okay.
Do we need to revisit this or what?
This is cool.
It really is an education thing as far as design work when
Right.
we're planning a new driveway. Existing driveways, that's something else.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the reason it's in here is because right now, you're not allowed to have a hard driveway in the near shore. It has to be permeable.
You can have it if you have collection though.
Right.
I think for every 1,000 square feet, you have to have a 4x8 or 8x8 ring.
What committee brought this one up?
I think it might have been
CSC?
WAC. The WAC, Water Advisory Committee or the WQI, but I think it was WAC.
I mean, I said we could leave it in for now. It says consider it.
Right.
This is going to be, we're going to have a lot of more public forums and feedback. And I mean, we have a lot more time to flesh it out.
And that's what everybody has to remember, like, these are
Nothing set in
not
stone.
set in stone. This is many, many reiterations, and then we just keep gathering data and comment and input to keep thinking about. So that's what these conversations are about.
Right.
Meg, I just thought of one other thing before we leave the irrigation. This came up at the planning board about tennis courts.
Yes.
So, and when you mentioned about, all these businesses that everything that has a tennis court, those are usually watered depending on the technology. I know that there's like clay versus harder tennis court surface, and there's one that's preferred, which I don't remember.
The hardcourt.
Jay, or
I think
hardcourt.
people like hardcourt. Yeah. It's an irrigated tennis court, the hardcourt.
Basically, there's like better technologies now where I think it can be watered at night, still dry up in time to be played on. So I know we've had a couple applications that came through, so we have to keep that in mind, I think, in the comp plan too, about tennis courts.
Yeah.
Every place I go, I see a tennis court and pool, tennis court and pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't they water with salt water? No.
That I don't know. That'd be great, though.
Would be.
All right.
Not really. They could contaminate your wells.
Oh, yeah, truth.
Yeah, you don't
True.
want.
She's joking, I think.
Okay, I'm checking, double checking.
On the fuel oil thing, we do have one thing in the code about the fuel oil tanks. It's
Okay,
next
So
item.
let me, so number 11, issue regulations requiring the abandonment or removal of underground fuel oil storage tanks upon property transfer with a voluntary compliance period of 2 years for tanks in water protection zones and 5 years for all other areas from the date of the requirement, the date the requirement takes effect. And that's Town Code Chapter 43-10.3.
Right. Many mortgage companies do require that.
Right.
But a lot of our transactions are not mortgage dependent. So there's that. I think that is a good suggestion. And we also, just so you know, we require it for a building permit where there's significant reconstruction. That you have to abandon your underground fuel oil tank.
Yeah. So
I'll need
this.
to tighten this up.
Right, this, and then there's a reference there that it is in the town code. So this was something that someone had recommended, but it's already been addressed. It was in, I think, 2008. So,
Have we found any LP in the water?
not widespread. I mean, every once in a while, someone might have an issue, but it's not a big problem. And then the second that sort of goes along with that one, develop a rebate program and low to no interest financing options for replacement of residential underground fuel oil storage tanks. That hasn't really had any traction. We haven't really had a need for that. So I don't know if we need to keep that action item, because most of the time it's addressed on property transfer.
Yeah.
And most people that I know of have started to.
They don't want
Yeah,
that,
they don't
yeah.
want them. They want
Yeah.
the above ground.
Yeah. Should we take it out? Should we leave it? What do you guys think?
I think.
I don't know.
I'd take it out.
Yeah, probably take it
Yeah,
out.
I don't think.
Take
we
it
need I
out
think-
because, yeah, it was where the world's going.
Right?
Plus, I don't know, to abandon a tank, it's, I think around $1,200 or so from the abandonment companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then haul, they can get it out.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So then, number 11, the one right above it, the issue regulations requiring abandonment and removal, if that's kind of addressed already.
No, it's not. That code is what I was just saying to you. It's
Oh,
only the
okay.
building permit. So probably upon transfer is a good one.
Okay, so we'll leave that. in that.
Require it, yeah.
All right, what is now 12 was 14. Improve education regarding drought tolerant and native plants that require less water and provide a comprehensive guide to native plants that is easily accessible on the town website and in hard copy at the town hall and the building department. I believe
It's
CAC
already accomplished.
finished this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we can remove this action item. The CAC did do that.
I know we've brought up the homeowner's handbook several times.
Yep. Right.
It does exist. It's not widely distributed,
Right.
or you like really have to hunt for it.
Yeah.
I think we really need to make that a priority to all residents.
Yeah.
And really
Is
push
it
it out
available?
there.
It's not available online?
No, it's on the town
It is.
website,
Oh,
yeah.
it is on the town.
Yeah,
website.
and it was recently revised, or relatively recently revised as well. And it has a lot of good information on, a lot about runoff and pesticide use
That's
and
good.
a lot of these issues, but it's just, a lot of people, most people don't know it exists.
there.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's great. Again, publicized.
I think
Right.
Penny and I wrote the original one about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's been revised, I think, 5-6 times now.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
It's good. And for a while, we had it at all real estate offices, and any new homeowner, any closing, they had it there, but I don't think that's been followed through.
It's happening, yeah.
We'll have to
That's a good
revive
idea,
it.
though, yeah. I will add that the Silver Beach Association, we worked on that. We took that document that you're referring to, and on our website, we have a whole section on, property maintenance and water conservation. All the homeowner associations did that. That'd be really good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If they would.
If
So
you
that's
would,
something
yeah. I mean, we're doing it in Silver Beach.
Yeah.
That's easy. I know all the HOAs on the island are tuned into this and.
That could be part of our
So maybe she could help push it out.
Yeah, that would be great.
It's revised now, but once
Yeah.
it's revised again and
So
continue to
we need to go
remind.
back to our education
I mean, how many
section
new-
and add this.
I will.
How many new homeowners have we acquired in the last,
Right.
for 2 years?
A lot of homes. There have been more homes than population.
Yeah, I believe.
More homes.
Come
I
on.
think there is something like a home for every 2 homes.
I think it's
It almost, I was thinking,
I don't know, I'm looking.
It's like a
Yes.
little mini cooperative.
All right, on to the next one. Coordinate with CPF and local landscape and lawn care businesses to convert one of the town-owned properties to an environmental education center with areas showing best environmental practices for landscaping, yard care, and a section promoting plantings for pollinators. This kind of matches, which one? There was Southold has develop a water conservation and educational demonstration site. It kind of goes with that. And I know that CPF is actually looking to do something like this at the West Neck corner. They want to create a meadow and also do a demonstration garden for native pollinators and things like that.
So we might consider this sort of done.
Well,
Take it out.
we
but-
might want to see
yeah.
if they would be willing to add things like rain gardens or swales to
Right.
show
Native,
demonstrations of ways to recharge without dry wells. And
Yes.
so we can ask if they could expand it to demonstrate some of these other practices. Especially if like local landscape and lawn care businesses are going to help and maybe, they can have some free advertising or something.
I kind of tried something this when I was highway super, Adopt a Park.
Yeah.
And I don't think the guys took too well to it because it was taking away their work.
Well, it would be a chance for them to showcase what they can do.
No, taking away the employees' work.
For the highway guys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
It
we'll talk
was
to them.
more of a union thing.
It's a negotiation.
Yeah.
We could combine 13
There
and
you go.
14 here, or I have the other numbers.
Okay, so should we keep it as is for now?
Yeah.
Does anyone have?
Unless you want to put a note saying as proposed by, I know, talking about that property you're just mentioning.
As proposed by CPF?
Yeah,
Yeah,
CPF funds be able to.
right.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, it's-
And you
There's
can
wrong
put at the end of it, and perhaps adding best water practice. I mean, you can add that.
Station at a snack.
Whatever.
Well maintained.
Right.
I almost think that would be a requirement if you're going to take over one of these spaces, or you're going to do something there, you really have to submit a best practices management plan
Yes.
so that you kind of know what they're doing and make them become familiar with what you're doing.
All right. Like that. Drinking water action items. Characterize through sampling and analysis and model the aquifer quality for nitrates, chlorides, PFAS, things like that, to identify and prioritize the need for remediation of contaminants and development of additional water districts island-wide. So essentially, do more wide range sampling and analysis to determine what our aquifer quality is.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What does it mean, additional water districts? Is it counting nearshore overlay as a water district? And so they're thinking of other contaminated or polluted districts?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, it could be, here, if you're talking about, it depends on how you're thinking about it, because the water districts could also be, you have West Neck water, you have Deer Harbor water, you have the Heights water. Then you could do an island-wide water district for water quality purposes, or it could be a zoning district like you're referring to. You have the near shore. Do you want to have, are there other water conservation zones that we need to create? So it depends on how we want to view it.
So we might want to step down from districts, which has a more centralized tone to it, and put down addition water areas or, distinct water areas island-wide.
but maybe more specifically, which I think would be probably more helpful, if we can have a volunteer system of individual homeowners providing their results, so they don't have their name on there, so they feel concerned about it, then we can catalog all that information, all that data we have. Because a lot of it's being collected by the county now on our monitored wells. But if we start getting homeowners' information in there, we can really track movements of things, where it's going, and what's really out there, and what's in there.
We discussed that today at
good.
the Water Advisory Committee.
Okay.
And to protect privacy, once it's in public hands, that information, it's foilable. So I'm not sure that there's a mechanism, if we, meaning the town government, collects the data, and we know the address or the person's name or parcel number.
Get a third party.
Well,
That's what we've been discussing, is to try to have a third party, and then instead of you would have just a 4-block, sector or gridded of the island, and in this grid, there are 5
Yeah.
properties with X
Correct.
problems or whatever.
So who was this third party? Who would they be? I mean, is
It's
there
water
anybody
testing.
out there?
Water testing company
Water
that would collect the data and graph the data for us. So, early stages in terms of talking about it, but it's a good start, and maybe to start here in the center where we
Because
suspect.
that's one of the problems with even the wastewater plan, was that the data that was used to even characterize what our nitrate problem was really based on 8 wells. Only 3 of which were even in the area that was bright red in the map.
Yep.
And some of that data was really old. And so, it's hard to say that red blob is accurate when it's only really 3 wells. And so it'd be great if we had all these different people.
Yeah, that's what we've been thinking too.
And equally as important to see if what we're doing is working or not.
Right, absolutely. That's a big change.
That's really just basic,
Science.
one-on-one.
Yeah,
Before and
you need
after.
some data before you can actually
Right.
monitor change.
Clarification on the development of additional water districts. Is that just purely for identifying areas?
I think
We're not
so.
talking about.
What we can do to make this cleaner is just eliminate that option.
I'm just gonna say, just take that out.
There's gonna be missing.
Yeah.
It brings up the notion of community water districts, which.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll just delete it, and the goal is to get quality baseline data so we understand what our needs for remediation are.
Yeah, great.
Would you want to include that thing you're discussing about the possible homeowners' involvement with that or not?
No, because I think this is a good higher level goal, and then that's one of the
Okay.
methods of.
Maybe just an example of?
An example.
Method of
There are some people
Doesn't Suffolk County have all this data?
Individually,
They won't share the actual location.
right.
So they'll give you,
Just give us the areas.
well, they'll give you the points for a street, but 114 is rather long, Midway is long, like, they say, hey, we got these points on West Neck. Well, it doesn't help because,
Right.
so we have foiled before from the county, and that's what we get. And you're like, oh, well, that's not effective.
It's a large
So then you
cross
have
section,
to,
I guess, as well.
It's almost like they should use the grid map that the police department uses and then put everybody in that grid map. Right?
Depending what department, they all use different grid maps.
No, we give them our grid map.
Do
I know, yeah.
they use different grid maps?
Well, just for divvying up the different sectors of the island. I
yeah.
think ours is different than the building departments, is different than the assessor, just in the different districts.
All right, so then another sort of subpoint to that one was educate the public on water quality in their area and encourage testing of private wells. So that's sort of like part A to collecting the data.
The Heights does this very effectively. I mean, we just got the water report for this year today, and telling everybody to still sample their own and blah, 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 but.
And it's easy to do when you're in a water district and you have
Because
public
it's so
water,
organized.
but it's hard when everyone is on their own personal private well, because then it's the homeowner's responsibility.
Absolutely.
Although I'll add that golden water, probably put a little advertisement in everybody's box, if you get that.
Yeah.
It's $200 right now, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a deal.
Yeah, but the county's only 100. They do more than Goldman does. You have to wait 6 months, though.
It's 100
Yeah.
compared to.
County charges 100, but they test everything that's out there.
Golden gets it back to you faster, it's not as extensive.
Right. So like you can find out all kinds of nasty things you have there under your house.
But they must know that we're
Scary.
discussing water, because they sent it out.
Yeah,
Everybody's starting to do their advertising for the summer season, I think.
but that's a good thing.
Yeah. All right, so the next one is develop an incentive program for residents to test their well water and share the data with the town for the purpose of establishing groundwater quality mapping. So we're all on the same page here.
Right.
Okay. So we should.
And have
keep
people
that in.
done this in the past, though? I mean, have people just offered this information to the town in the past?
So there are certain ways in which we can collect the information. So if you have a new well installed, we now have a well registry, but that program's only a few years old. And so with that well registry, you'd also include your well water data. Because it's such a new program, we really don't have significant data from it. There just haven't been that many new wells installed to make a difference in our reporting. Okay. The next topic, begin discussions with public water suppliers to understand the engineering and financial aspects of developing limited scope public water supply and distribution systems to provide drinking water to areas currently unable to reliably source potable water from residential wells or currently challenged areas.
That's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, and most of this has to come from the homeowners themselves.
Yeah.
Like Suffolk County Water Authority won't go into an area unless 40% of the homeowners in that area want water.
And you understand they have the right. So, I mean, this is here, but, and it has sort of started, but really early days. This is great that it's here, but it's almost not redundant. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's self-evident.
Cat's out of the bag.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the people that we hear from regarding this are people who live in the near shore who have saltwater intrusion.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's, I have a salty
No.
well.
Talking about the near shore, just looking ahead, there isn't a section that covers the near shore. And we need another section because the problem, there's groundwater, surface water, but we don't have near shore. And talking about the water problems, I heard that there was discussion at the Community Housing Board this week about extending, they want to put together a proposal to extend accessory dwelling units to the near shore overlay area. This would do exactly the opposite of everything that has been talked about and that is written in the 1993 and everything we're talking
They're
about.
already there.
So I think we need.
But Lily, but we would almost have to say, and I'm just going to follow your thought through. We'd almost have to say that someone constructing, a new home on Ram Island, I see a couple going up on Little Ram right now, they can't have that, the helps quarters. They can't have the pool house that has sleeping. That what you're proposing is it's a big thing.
It probably depends on the size.
No, I'm not, I'm saying that if we're considering all of these environmentally fragile areas, we don't have anything written here about the wetlands where there is a lot about them in the 93 plan. That's all. It's missing from these action items, that's all. And I think I don't know.
That whole side of this, I mean.
Yeah, I think we just need, it just occurred to me as we're talking about
It's a lot of our
density.
comments, it's a lot of,
Right.
water quality.
Right, but not specifically.
Yeah,
And
so-
it's mentioned, the near shore overlay, it just occurred to me.
So like it's
Well,
more
that would be a land
powerful.
use chapter as well.
Right.
But it also should be an
It
environment.
should, totally.
Yeah.
And water,
Absolutely.
because
In the
It's just missing.
watershed management plan.
watershed management, maybe that would be.
That's a very good plan as well.
Yeah.
We should put in an item like that.
I think it's more powerful if it has its own section, as Lily's suggesting.
Right.
That's what I think. It's more noticeable.
Okay. And then this is sort of an extension of the one right before. Where public will exists, install public water supply and distribution systems to supply currently challenged areas and establish associated management and operating capability. So, I mean, they're kind of the same goal. I would
This one out.
say, yeah.
So is that like install a public well in this park and run water down to Montclair? Is that what that concept is?
Well,
Is that what this
public,
means?
yeah, it could be a public water supply and distribution system to supply challenged areas. So it could be a town-run water, community
That's what
water
I think
system.
it's saying. I think it's
It
saying
could
do it
be-
yourself.
But you can also hook up two other homes or such on another person's property, like they've already done that and.
Yes.
But
I mean, it's
We
an
have
affirmative
a-
statement, and that's the problem I'm having.
Yeah.
Right.
We should do this where we can. And I'm
Right.
not
Well, it says
sure
where
that's the
public
right
will
thing.
exists.
It says where
Well, it says
public will
that's
exists.
important.
So,
But
That's our
people can-
40%.
People can ask for it.
That's it, public will.
No, but it says,
Do what you
and it
want.
goes, where public will exist, we should definitely go and install these.
Well, of course, it's public will. I mean, what would you tell them? No?
No, it's a directive, and community and public water is also a requirement for certain kinds of building and development. It's hand in hand, it's not separate from building and density.
Request of us, but that 40% we could use.
That's all I'm saying.
so, well, we don't have to be that specific.
I think that's the
Right?
right.
Just from the audience side, there's too much, it's hard to decipher what's going on.
No, sorry.
Sorry.
You're right.
Public might think that.
It's really hard on,
It's like doing a command, you're absolutely right, where
Yes.
public will go in and do it.
right. Been requested.
That does bring up a little bit of a problem. Let's say, for example, Montclair wants water.
Right.
And you just suddenly mentioned Dickerson Park. Well, Dickerson Park is pretty close to salt water itself. You start pulling from Dickerson Park, now all of a sudden you'll be pulling water for the other people on the near shore there. Now all of a sudden their walls are salted. So we have to cite this somewhere that's going to be not, I'm sure Suffolk County Water Authority, if we're going to use them, would have the ability to determine which is the correct site. But that's going to make this a challenge to be able to solve.
You end up with a small circle because you're going to need 250 feet of separation between, the nearest septics. So you're going to end up with a small location if that's the case.
Right. I mean, the white property seems like a great idea, but it's so close to the salt.
That's even closer.
There's not enough
Yeah,
fresh water on the
yeah.
right.
Some of those wells, I think, were salted.
Yeah.
So how about this modification?
The dump and get water, right?
Upon, yeah. Upon public
Brilliant.
request, investigate installing public water supply and distribution systems to supply currently challenged areas and establish associated management and operating capabilities. Or instead of currently, just say challenged.
I don't even think we need an established associated management, just to, I like the way you phrase it, but just to investigate how to do it. I don't think we need to say and manage it.
To supply challenged areas, period.
Yeah, that's all.
I think
Investigate the possibility of
I
installing.
mean, the problem is that we really need like a hydrologist
yeah.
to be able to tell you really kind of what
Well,
you
I
can
mean,
do
if
and where
we're-
you can go.
Yeah, there's a better way to word
You know what I'm
this.
saying?
Yeah, better way to word it.
To formalize a process to do it, where
That's it, it's more creative process.
Right, Emily,
just know how to do it, if,
Challenge areas.
create a roadmap, really,
That's
for
all.
those residents.
That's all.
Emily Juncker and Noah are on, here, and so they're hearing this, and,
Okay.
yeah. They'll, get that
And the
squared.
roadmap could be, if we go down to the next one, 17, because the financial aspect of it and
Back and fix.
citing, all that kind of stuff, be involved in that too. It's a whole big plan you gotta come up with.
So should I just change, instead of establish associated management and operating capability, and establish a roadmap on how to implement?
Yeah.
Or just leave it at challenged
How many
areas,
people-
period?
I think it's got to be a little fluid, not to be punning, but, when it happens, where it happens will dictate what we're trying
Exactly, how
to
you, yeah,
do.
you're right.
I mean, the center would be really different, same one.
Very different from Montclair Colony, for instance, right?
All right, so what I have it as now is, upon public request, investigate installing public water supply and distribution systems to supply the challenged area, period.
Right, and I don't even think we need 20, because that will have to happen. You see, that's moving ahead. First, you need public will to even mention it.
Are you saying the develop a financial model and identify
You don't even
funding
need
sources?
that. No.
Right, so that would be part of the
It's
one.
part of the roadmap, so we get rid of that.
Yeah.
All right, and then consider establishing water quality districts or an island-wide water management district,
But we just said no to that
We
right?
said no to that.
before.
All right, so I will delete that option. And then create a time phase master plan for public water utility service to the remainder of the island. I mean, that
I think
depends
that's
on
too
public will, so we'll delete that as well.
It's gonna be, neighborhood by neighborhood, it's gonna be
Right.
development
Right.
by development.
No, it's gonna, it'll,
That's the Shelter Island way, we can't really.
Mature areas.
Yeah.
right,
First.
and they're sure, right.
And then you have these, we have incidences, sort of like Sandy, which really came and did
Change
a lot of
everything.
damage down on the one shore of the island.
Yeah,
That you can't do that in a, you have to read.
I agree. It has to be circumstance by circumstance.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to surface water action items. Develop a monitoring program or participate in existing programs for surface waters contained within and surrounding Shelter Island in conjunction with the Nature Conservancy, Peconic Estuary Partnership, and Cornell Cooperative Extension. The purpose is to develop a database of local surface water quality information that can be used to trend pollutant levels, assisting groundwater modeling and management efforts, and assist with shellfish management and aquaculture activities.
Please add Draconic Baykeeper to that list, because we just joined with them for Papa's Harbor monitoring.
Perfect.
Can I suggest also a group for East End?
They don't do water monitoring, do they?
They're
No.
pretty active.
Organization.
Yeah. I don't think they actually do it, but okay.
Group for the East End?
Doesn't the DEC monitor freshwater?
They do.
The DEC should be in there.
Well, they're,
These are more like,
these are
these are
NGOs.
less regulatory.
Yeah.
The concerns.
So the thing we're missing here, though, is recreation. So Suffolk County monitors the water, I know in Fresh Pond, and the beaches.
Yeah.
I think on a weekly basis, maybe.
Right, we don't have to partner with them, they do that.
They
That's
do
part of
that,
their
but
remit.
we should partner with them so we get the data.
We do get the data, we're gonna have a presentation tomorrow about it.
Good.
Tune in.
I'll be working.
So here's my
yeah, we did.
suggestion.
We
You know,
have a
this is
good guy,
document
WME.
that's gonna last over time and,
In conjunction with local agencies?
local agencies.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as I was typing.
Agencies will change over time, new ones will come along.
I like that, thank you. The next item, if people are good with that, collect annual data from the commercial baymen about the quality and quantity of their catch to help monitor health of our waterways, shellfish, and marine life. So right now we have them coming in on an annual basis and kind of giving us a report of the year.
Is that too long? Is an
Only
annual
once a year?
report too
Yeah.
long a period of time?
The DEC already attempts to do that. I don't know what their feedback is, and I don't know how many Shelter Islanders participate.
Well, I know the baymen have to report to the DEC, and that's
Oh,
where the
absolutely,
DEC
yeah.
gets a lot of their
It would be
information.
more effective for us.
Right.
I mean, they're, commercial fishermen are required to log everything they catch, so, I mean, they have the data if they're willing.
It would be great. I think it would be great.
If not, their interpretations of, how it's varied throughout the seasons.
I think it just also becomes a conversation between the town government and the people who are really stewards of and have the most invested perhaps.
So should I leave it as it stands?
I would.
Okay. Continue to improve control of stormwater runoff and reduce contamination of ground and surface waters by providing upland stormwater catchment detention and recharge prior to stormwater reaching surface water bodies. So instead of letting it go overboard and directly into the bays and estuaries, try to capture it beforehand, so it has to travel through groundwater and filter before getting to the bays and estuaries.
I would like to add something to this, which would be that it would be a challenge to the CPF funds, that they should purchase these areas that are catchment basements, that are kettle holes. That should be a goal. They are, instead of buying something for just open space, earmark these areas.
I love that.
That's
idea.
Because right now, we have people buying a lot and then filling it in.
That's
I mean,
great.
I'm happy that vendors have that lot there on the corner of St. Mary's and Burns, but that was a beautiful catchment basement, and now it's gone. It's all filled in. So, we have to really, if we really are serious about this whole idea of catchment and recharge, buy this property and let it sit there. It's an important spot.
It is, in the CPF sort of remit, and actually Gordon mentions it pretty much every meeting, recharge. That's what he's looking for. I mean, properties.
But they're thinking these big vast humps of
Yeah,
land.
yeah,
Recharge is
not
also
that-
where it runs off too.
Yeah.
Kettle hole here.
And there are a few left.
And they bought the 4 acres behind my house for that purpose.
That's right. It's not even accessible.
I know Southold has the exact same lines, continue
If
to.
it comes up, we do it.
Groundwater and surface water resource protection.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Nice and to add that.
Continue to improve, I would actually like some stronger language on 25, like on Winthrop, just for an example, there's a pipe, there's 2 pipes that just one goes right into the creek from the road, and one goes right into the Deering Harbor from the road. I think that those should be like within 5 years gone, not just those, but where they are anywhere on the island, and that should be sort of within 5 years, what is that called, MS4?
Yeah, the MS4 plan is supposed to be eliminating all those direct overflow.
And I think we should have a definitive statement about that
The
here.
problem is that land is so narrow.
Yeah.
That where are you going to put it? So you could put it in, and with volume of water could start to actually blow out the sides. So it's very challenging to try to get
Yeah.
anything in the ground right there.
Yeah,
It's got to be quite further out. You got to start catching water at Deering Harbor.
right. But what about filters, right? Aren't there some filter? I mean, I get it won't be cheap and easy. I think probably cheap and easy has already been done. And what's left are the hard ones. But I think that it should be a strong statement in this document.
Along those lines, I don't want to keep going back to Southold, but I like good ideas when I see them. Find it, they had something about establishing watershed management plans.
Oh, yes.
Specific to each creek in different areas.
I think that's a good idea.
You know what?
Specific for, we can have it for Gardner Creek, Chase
This
Creek.
is what is missing here,
Yes,
manage water use and disposal.
So we do-
Look how excellent, but this is 2008.
Yeah, so we do have the watershed management plan, which is, I think, a very good document. And it's partnered with, a lot of different people. It used the latest hydrology. I know Mike Lassia was involved. A lot of it's still relevant. So I think a lot of it could go back to that, but
We should put that in.
I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but some sort of overall watershed management.
Not reinvent, but a reminder of what's there.
Right.
You know, and to-
We just revisit what we already have.
Yep.
All right, good. They're by the second bridge.
By Second Bridge.
Yeah,
Because the other side of the bridge is.
And look how very specific and well-drawn it is in 2008. We are not dealing like this kind of language. Look at this. I mean, I can point to other examples, but.
Lily, what is the code number?
Shall I give you the numbers? This is page 15. It's 2008 and it's 14A. 14A.
Thank you.
And there's a few. There's better protect, well, town wetlands. Page 22, better protect town wetlands. That's action point 9 or Z31. There's nothing like this in this document. So I think, I can give you a few others. There's another wetlands. And that's a page long, which is a very good.
What's the other one you have?
That's the same one. And then there is water management, which is on page 24, action point 12 or Z32.
Shouldn't we have like an analysis of what's
No, there is.
to the wetlands
Yeah.
over a period of time?
That's what I'll go back.
Exists somewhere, but
It's
there's
pretty
more
well
stuff.
monitored.
So I'm going to go back and I'll pull those and I will incorporate them into this, because this needs obviously a lot of cleaning up. So after this meeting, I'll go through and I'll clean it all up and I'll send
my
it back.
notes in.
Yeah.
Because I have them related to that document. I didn't go back to this, so.
21 is really already part of,
Consider roadside
Yeah.
rain gardens or swales. That's kind of one of the,
yeah,
that's included above.
yeah, it's redundant.
So, clean that. Encourage coastal residents, oops, sorry, it's frozen. Encourage coastal residents to create vegetative buffer zones on their properties to lessen runoff into the bays. So this is a wetlands.
Yeah, and that was in the 2008 too. It was something like that. Exactly. Right.
And the watershed
And
management
then
is now
continue
there
to implement
twice.
the
Yeah.
watershed management plan. So I will just cite 2008 14A, delete the above, and then I'll go through and
But don't we require that now for all new development?
the buffer.
Yes.
We have them whenever the application's reviewed.
Right.
So
But it's
yes,
not
it's not
codified.
codified, so we
Oh.
need to add
Okay,
it.
then that should be codified.
Yes. It's automatically saving for me.
Organizationally.
I appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll watch the
You
video
don't
later
lose
and I'm
it.
like, oh my goodness.
So obviously this is, kind of the overarching directive document.
Right.
We have these other subordinate plans, which have their own action items and goals and objectives, some of which are copy and paste. Is that repetitive? Should the goals and objectives for this document be more overreaching while the goals in the watershed management plan be more specific? Just big picture, how is that?
I think these should be more overarching and then reference the
I know the
more
objectives will
specific
be
documents.
specific, but
Sure.
Yeah.
like the watershed management plan, they have their own goals and objectives and they're all very specific. It's a matter of how repetitive do you get with that. This is the overarching guidance policy
Just
document.
regurgitate, yeah.
That's why continue to implement the watershed management plan is one of the goals here. And I think some of these are in here just to remind people that it exists. We have a watershed management plan.
But you know what? I think Sean's point is that the major categories of the watershed management plan should exist in this goals and objectives. Maybe not the points, but the major categories should all be there.
Definitely, and it's also like a chicken and the egg type thing. This comes first. This is being revised. This is the guidance document, and any subordinate document should be revisited and updated in accordance with this plan.
Right.
So it's, obviously, we look at the plans to make our revisions, but whatever this turns into should then spur, further.
We can say this is done, this is not done, this can't be done. Right. But we need the categories.
Right.
We need not to exclude the basic categories.
Yeah, so for example, an action, like a
like management.
action item like implement the watershed management plan, we then appoint a committee to go through the watershed management plan, see what's been done, what needs to be done, what action should be taken. You know, that's how it would kind of go. So you would then designate someone in charge of that watershed management plan implementation, and then they would follow.
Question, the reason I'm being fussy about this is that nowhere in this is wetlands mentioned, and it's mentioned in the watershed management plan. And I feel it should be mentioned in this document. That's the kind of mention that it should be in, rather than just say, do what the watershed management plan says. Should be the category.
Got it. All right. Okay, so this is the last section of ones that we wrote, and then I'd love to go through the ones Southold has. Some of them just won't work for us, but some of them are good thoughts. Wastewater action items. The first one, all wastewater entering our aquifer should be at a maximum of 19 milligrams per liter of nitrates.
The goal of 10 or less.
Yes. So that's based off of the new county regulations for the IA systems. So if everyone, so then that's.
Since 10 or more is poison.
So is everyone okay with that action item?
Yes.
Okay. Number two, consider
I feel like we're
establishing.
selling it short,
Yeah.
Well,
because it can be zero almost,
almost, but you'd have to do
right?
But I think
significant.
it should be a max of 19, that's obvious, but I think the goal should be 10 or less.
Why wouldn't that be our goal? I
Right.
think.
I mean, especially since that safe, that safe level, I think, is going to drop over the next year or two, is the rumor. And so 19 is crazy.
Really?
Well, why don't we just reference the county reg? And
That is.
that's- that is-
No, but just reference it, take
Take the number out of it.
the number out of it, and then,
Number, right.
and then if it becomes 10, then the reg will become 10.
Whatever it is.
Well, I find it, I don't think it's likely that the county is going to drop the regulation to 10
On the
milligrams per
effluent.
liter because the technology is not there yet.
Yeah.
So the standard technology for residential application isn't consistently going to hit 10. So no one will meet the standard. So they're not going to set that standard yet.
Yeah.
Is my take
There's
on the
other,
situation.
there are other
Eventually,
technologies that
maybe
can
20 years
achieve.
down the line,
Yeah.
but I don't think at this point it's a fair goal to set when it's not achievable for most.
Oh, I agree with you. I don't think we should put 10 in here, if that's what you're saying.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah.
With the goal of less.
Yeah.
All right, the next one, consider establishing an island-wide wastewater management district or local community districts. This would facilitate single treatment systems serving multiple effluents. So,
I think island-wide is the problem I have here. I like the local.
yeah, I mean,
Suffolk County, wow.
yeah, what it does is it kind of allows,
Would this allow multiple homes on one AI system that could share a system?
yeah, it would allow small cluster systems, if the county would allow cluster systems.
Right.
So like if you had like a
Deal
small
count.
subdivision, you could have all the homes in that subdivision on one system, that kind of concept.
Is that what happened on Manwaring? Is that how that was handled?
That's kind of a benefit.
Some of those cottages are on one system?
I'm having trouble. Oh, yes, but that was grandfathered that way.
Oh, it was, okay,
Yeah.
oh, so that's why it was
Yeah.
allowed, okay.
Oh, because it was there before and it's
Correct.
not replaced by.
Right, that might improve system,
Right.
so the county was like, yay.
I have a question.
I don't think we really want island-wide.
Yes, I think.
Okay.
Strike that.
I think that should definitely go out. It's too much like the controversy going on.
So consider establishing local community districts where necessary?
Let's hear. I mean, I
think so.
don't know if we want.
Right.
Comment here.
Jan? Yeah.
So I don't think Suffolk County allows this right now. I mean, right now it's one septic system or one AA system per property. And so, I don't see what the purpose is establishing any wastewater districts. Preferred method of treatment of nitrates in Suffolk County. It's the AI systems. I mean, there's no need for those districts then, so let's just take this point out.
Well, do the districts help?
Districts help with funding, they help with a whole bunch of other things.
They help also that you could use something better than IA. That does a better job than 19.
It's something that you kind of have to look into and see the pros and cons and have a really like open discussion with the public about what it would entail. And so it's not, it's not a statement that this is what we should do. It's just, these are options that we may want to look into. Because the county is looking at doing a county-wide wastewater district in order to create their reoccurring revenue stream for their wastewater grants and for maintenance of systems and for sewer expansion in areas where, like especially out west in Western Suffolk, there's a lot of sewer districts that need expanding into some areas. So the county's exploring that option because it gives them kind of more oversight. It gives them financing opportunities, things of that.
I think that also
Oh,
give us
the question-
financing opportunities in the island, South, that Suffolk County's doing.
You mean by being part of the Suffolk County District,
We'd be
maybe?
part of the Suffolk County District.
I think the question is it relevant to this island? I could see it for Western Suffolk, but the question I have is it relevant for this island?
I mean, we may not need our own if the county's going to do a county-wide district, is sort of the,
Also, by not having this here as your suggestion, Jan, it doesn't say we couldn't do it, should it become necessary in some odd circumstance,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
We can
is
eliminate
that
it.
true?
Consider.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some article in the newspaper like Suffolk County is considering this county-wide
Yeah.
district and will take over responsibility for maintenance of all IA systems. So why should we do anything? It's a county.
So that's,
Hold on.
eliminate it if it's going to be
Good to
complicated.
Put it in terms of various options so that it isn't just one option. Consider the community districts and other methods, something that makes it less directive.
Or just take it out.
Pardon?
Or just take it out.
Or just take it out, and if it comes up
Take it out,
as an issue,
okay.
then it's something that you would
Well, what's the real
address.
purpose? What would be the end game of this?
So always looking at the best ways to treat water.
Right, so that's what it
Most
is.
optimum
So,
treatment.
you continue to evaluate for the most, efficient or optimum way to,
Right.
dispose of,
Reduce nitrates. I mean, that's
Right.
what the goal is.
if
then other-
if it's some sort of waste management district, then that's what it is. If not,
Right.
you want to put it to what are we trying to accomplish here,
Right.
not the method of how to do
Right.
it.
So then we don't really need this goal,
Right.
because the goal is the goal is number one, all
Yes.
wastewater entering aquifers should be a max of 19 milligrams per
Right.
liter with a goal of
We
less.
can get rid of it, right.
Feel free to delete the next one. too.
I know, Ben.
Right.
So the next item, continue the plan to develop a centralized wastewater treatment plant to serve effluents for municipal buildings in town center. Design the treatment process, purchase land if required, based on a modular approach that will enable expansion to service residents and other structures in the center in the future. So I do think that this goal is currently fluctuating. I mean, this obviously isn't going to be accurate. So
I think we need to move it.
well, you do understand that if we remove this, it doesn't remove the current discussions that are happening.
But it helps.
It helps. It helps. It helps. This is a directive.
No, I didn't think that, let me see how to rephrase the,
I think, just separate while you think of that, addressing I mess it up, the PFAS and the plastics and pharmaceuticals. I mean, that's also, an important goal, and we'll have to put that in either separate or whatnot. It has to be addressed somehow. How you do it,
Right.
that's up for debate, but it
So-
needs to be
Technology's
addressed.
constantly changing
Right.
that anyway,
Right.
so.
Or, investigate or consider ways to handle the problem of the
The
center.
method we can all
The
debate
method.
on, but I don't
But
think
we
anyone
don't
can
want to put a
disagree that.
specific method.
The need.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants cleaner water.
Everybody
It's just-
deserves and wants
Right, and I think that's where we get at
Right.
here is,
Right.
that's the goal. I mean,
goal. Right.
So can I make a point here? Sarah can comment on this, which is that this point 31 is directly contradicts what town represented to DEC, Suffolk County, about its intention to develop this center wastewater treatment plant for just 8 municipal buildings, okay? So I suggest that we delete that altogether.
Right.
We're going to alter it so that it doesn't,
Continue investigating
methods, right, to treat effluent.
for municipal buildings in town center.
How would you?
Yeah, right?
How would you, what kind of wording, may I ask a question? What wording would you consider?
Lily, what I've modified it to is continue investigating methods to treat effluents from municipal buildings in the town center.
Good, that's.
That's it, we're in.
Kind of neutral.
That's the
You've
thought.
done
Right
it.
side.
You've done it very well.
Neutral.
Very well done. Very well done. I think that's excellent.
Okay, the next one, continue to closely monitor the Suffolk County sub-watersheds wastewater plan implementation, particularly identifying a reliable reoccurring funding source for the implementation of their plan. So this they're already doing, so this we don't, this is their
Grant writer.
Suffolk County wastewater management district that they're currently working on, so we can delete that. This is not necessary. Continue the town grant program for IA system installation.
And
I'd say
develop-
expand it.
Yes.
I mean,
And develop a low to no interest loan program for IA
Yes, that's
system
fine.
installation.
Ramp
Do you
up.
want to say expand the
Ramp up.
town grant program or ramp up, whatever you want?
Yeah,
Is that grant still being
Yeah.
reported as taxable income?
No.
That's done now?
yes, I've already amended mine too.
Expand the town grant program for IA system installation and develop a low, no interest loan program for IA system installation. Just leave this up here.
Which actually already kind of exists.
It does,
At
CDCLI has one.
Yeah.
It's whether or not the town wants to have their own,
Yes.
which we may not. Jan?
Yeah, perhaps we should put some goal in there, because I hear that the WQI fund accumulated $3 million, which should have been aggressively spent on subsidizing construction of IA systems instead of sitting there. I mean, the sooner, more aggressively this is implemented, the quicker the nitrates know where will go down.
We're just rewriting the CPF acquisition plan, and in that, because since it was written, WQI was established, so the new plan will have Appendix F in it. Appendix F is exactly addressing that, and the goal is to get to 50 IA systems a year. Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of already happening. I mean, we could put a specific number in here, or just say,
Well, it's hard to put a number. This is a document that's going to
it's
be
gonna
going
change
on for so many years.
What happens once you hit 50? We want to keep going.
Well, what happens when you hit 3,000? Okay, you've hit all the houses on the island. You know, I mean, the goal is to upgrade, it's.
So what you're saying is hitting
Yes.
really where it's going to be
Yeah.
going. This is like.
And that's the money.
Grand goal for, 10 years or living, so.
right,
Now, for a loan program, I understand that there could be an income test. But what about for the grant program?
There's no income restriction on the grant.
Okay.
There are certain conditions, so it can't be a new construction on a vacant lot because you're adding a septic system where there was none previously. It can't be a major reno, so a tear down, rebuild, that doesn't count. I mean, there've been exceptions. If your house burns down, then we'd assist you to
Can
rebuild.
be on
you
an
know.
accessory dwelling unit? For example, you may need a new.
Well, if you have a pre-existing accessory, or if that accessory is tying into your home system and you want to upgrade the home system, then it upgrades all of them at once because they're one system. So, I mean, yes, as long as it's not a new construction.
As long as it's not entirely new.
Right.
What about commercial?
Commercial, that's a good question.
Commercial's a good question. I think if you were retrofitting like an existing commercial business, then yes, you would qualify. If you're building a brand new business or a new structure on a
Take
vacant.
the yacht club. I mean, everything goes to the weight plant.
Yep.
So there's nothing in the Heights that will qualify for that. So you start at Bridge Street,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
right? Take all the Bridge Street and put it in the AI system.
Right.
Or,
I think it
or
should
try to
be
hook up to the Heights, if the Heights ever.
It's still effluent.
Gotta get through the bridge.
Doesn't matter if it's commercial, residential, still effluent. Should
Right.
be dealt with.
Right,
So we
exactly.
should say commercial in here then.
Yeah. I agree.
That's good.
Well, it doesn't specify that it has to be residential.
Yeah.
Just IA system installation in general.
And the octal system goes up to the heights.
Yeah,
Plan.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the water comes from. This comes from the heights.
the
Comes
heights,
from
yeah. Up on the
the
hill.
well down by the ferry house and the wells down by Ice Pond and West Neck, all that whole stretch, and there's all wells.
Okay, so,
Oh, question.
Jan, sorry.
Perhaps another point, like I was considering upgrading my own septic systems to IA, but I look at the paperwork, and it's just Byzantine. There are 3 different levels, there is town, county, and state. Then you have to put up your own money, then maybe you get a year later, refunded and so forth, so it's but just the paperwork alone is scary. So maybe there should be a goal to develop, streamline the system, make it very easy, or maybe advance money upfront.
That's the loan program.
That would
You
be,
give it
So
to
the-
your contractor and let him do the paperwork.
The way it works is the county and state grants are actually one application. So you apply for the county grant and it automatically enrolls you for the state grant. So that's one application and it gets you both grants. And then those 2 grants pay your contractor directly. So it's usually around 20,000. That doesn't come out of your pocket. That gets paid directly to the contractor. The town grant is a separate application. And then that,
We just revamped it,
I was gonna say,
Number
we're
1.
working on that right.
Yeah.
It's
revamped it,
It's almost finished.
to make it simpler.
Right, you're gonna be offering conditional help and a full new application.
I have one more idea. Why don't just not to just refund the cost to homeowners, but provide incentive so they make some money just for the upgrading of septic system to IA. So
I think
maybe
that's a
then-
horrible idea.
no, you can't pay homeowners to, you can't use the town money in that way. Like, you can't make a profit on installing an IA system as a homeowner.
I'm talking about incentives to encourage more people to upgrade the system, okay, which is the common good.
Right.
Yeah, but the common, I mean,
The town could give them.
you're getting $26,000. That's
Only 10?
But we're also in the process of increasing the grant again.
Right.
It was set at 6,000, now we're actually in discussions about raising it, so in essence, you could get the whole thing covered.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing,
Right,
I think.
That's what I'm waiting for.
yes,
And if we can't count on people to have a little bit of unity,
right.
When it happens, let me know.
All right, can I move on to the next one?
And I keep saying, go to the town website, go all the way to the bottom, reclaim our water.
that's it.
Website is where you go, and that will help give you all the information, help you work through those application processes.
And you can apply online, it's actually very
and
simple.
if not, you'll volunteer to help.
Well, the Nature Conservancy was part of working, and that was how we worked together, so.
So Jan has a point, which is, it's for the common good. The town should make this as simple as like opening a door.
Well, and WQI is working on that. So that committee is working on doing like a concierge service where they help you through the grant process. So
That's
that's
all
what they're
I'm
working on.
They're
They're in the middle of getting that rolling.
And also just to add, it's not that we accumulated all this money and we've been sitting on it, not doing anything. Part of the problem is that the county getting these things going was an issue, so people were applying. It's
We had a pandemic
just not-
And then a hacking.
and then a hacking.
It's a manpower issue, right?
Don't hate me, but I have to do
All right, we still have a quorum, you
We
can
have
go.
like 3 more points. So the
I
next
trust you, Meg.
designated water protection zones, where estimated effluent travel to surface water, fresh or salt, is less than 2 years, based on 1 foot a day movement, and areas that are currently experiencing groundwater at or above 7 milligrams per liter of nitrates.
That looks like something that should be in the water management plan as opposed to in this document, if you want a good example.
Yeah.
Like both.
The water.
I mean, yes, watershed, that's what
It requires extensive.
it's very.
See Appendix C of grounded surface water management
But
plan,
that's something we should have a map of.
you know, on the next page,
We have a map.
probably,
Yes.
yeah.
There's something similar.
No, and Emily, if you don't have a map in the plan for these points, let us know. We'll find you one,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
I apologize.
Don't worry. Thanks for
Because
coming.
that's really the one you want to
Yeah,
target right away with the grant funding.
Right.
Kind of going to them.
Right.
The next one, develop a regulation that requires upgrading cesspool-only wastewater systems to add IA systems upon property transfer. Suggest a voluntary compliance period of 3 years for properties in water protection zones, and 5 years for all other areas prior to the requirement taking effect.
I don't know if that's necessary. I like this idea of requiring it upon transfer. I just do.
I think you need a little bit of a grace period
Yeah,
to
you
get the
do?
transfer done.
Yeah, it takes time to get through the health department.
Right,
So
right.
it can take up to a year sometimes, depending on the situation. If the DEC is involved, it could
Yeah.
take longer to get all the permits in place and it fully done and close out the permit. So
Are we talking about
Grace
just a
period.
specific area,
No.
just in the near shore overlay? Are we talking anywhere on the
I
island?
applied when a home transfers ownership.
I think that
It's
should
kind of what
be.
that's
The
saying.
transfer of ownership, yep.
Yep, I
I
think that's,
great. I just have to.
What if the transfer of ownership is within a family?
Right.
Oh, that's a good.
Those are things that, you'd have to hash out, I think.
but if it's within a family, you can get the grant, right?
Is it a guarantee that they get the grant or?
Much. I mean,
Like,
has anybody been turned down?
No, but wouldn't that be mandatory? We don't.
Oh,
mandatory
yes.
system installation.
But is that a local?
That's a
That's not in the
local.
enabling legislation.
So we have to change that.
We would have to change that, okay. But I think it would be worth it. Like, I don't know.
I tell you, people who are struggling to try to afford a house,
Yes, no, that,
when you unload your entire life savings, you can't,
Right.
you
yeah.
have nothing left.
But I think we are working on making this,
So unless you can get the grant,
yeah,
which is not guaranteed,
right.
Right.
um,
Well, and the
That's
other
really
thing
good.
too is like, most of the time when you have a transfer within a family, it's someone either inheriting a home.
Yeah.
So they may not be able to do all the upgrades and the changes and the things that that home may need. Sometimes if you're inheriting like your grandparents' house, they may not have been able to keep up with all the maintenance and,
Yeah.
and there can be a lot that has to happen there just to make it safe. So to then add another burden can be a challenge. I mean, I totally understand why it's a good idea, but I think we have to think about ways to make it so it's not a burden on the homeowner, or so it doesn't seem like kind of.
If this funding is ongoing, it looks good now, but
Right.
if it's ongoing, then I think you shouldn't have a problem. But, it's an unknown.
I think if the countywide wastewater management district passes, because that's going to go for referendum. So if it passes, then you'd have that, the county would have a renewable funding source to fund IA system installations and maintenance and things like that. And then you may feel more secure with a rule like this.
Yeah. We could put conditional upon,
Yeah.
conditional, we could even put
If we
it,
do it with a,
whatever.
any house or above a
It's a
certain
big,
price. Be hard, 2 million.
No, I mean, because then it's kind of arbitrary too. It
Let's get
doesn't,
the
yeah,
systems
no.
installed.
Yeah.
All right.
when's
Then
that
we don't wanna
referendum supposed to happen?
then leave it,
This
Before the
year,
end of
I
this?
think before the end of this year.
yeah.
oh, really?
So
We
we
should
can always
know.
circle back to it.
So we'll know, right.
Okay. Revisit the town IA code to clarify the conditions for acquiring an IA system and develop a long-term plan that upgrades all sanitary systems over the next 10 years. I think some clarification happened last year maybe, or the year before. But I mean, it's a good goal to work on upgrading all systems.
I have,
You kind of want to remain
have-
current.
Right.
I have one more item. Oh, have we finished this? No.
Well, do you have any comments on this one before?
Right. It's even stronger than 36.
Mhm. Can we do 10 years? I mean, that's a lot. I mean, in terms of,
Well, I think realistically,
yeah,
I mean, the 10 years is a reasonable time frame
okay,
because the county's looking at a 30-year program,
right.
a 40-year program, depending on how things go.
I mean,
So, I think for us, the smaller volume that we have to handle as opposed to what the whole county's working on, I think that's a reasonable objective.
Can we offer financing out of that?
Well,
So
that's
let's say
what
they
we have,
do it, and then we
yeah.
offer, but for anything that's above the grant funding, if we offered financing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right, and the county
You
has
could
a
do some
financing program of 0 to 3%, depending on, income level. So we have to make the whole program work for everybody, I think.
But it should be.
Right.
Right. And that's what WQI is working on doing.
Right. Because I mean, worst case scenario, say they don't pay it,
Mhm.
then they just attach it to the taxes.
Right, something like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's why you need,
Someone's going to pay for it down the road.
that's why you need a wastewater district, because it's the district that allows you
That
to
allows
use
you to
tax.
use the tax bill, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry to keep this later, but I just have a question. This struck me when I was going through this big,
Yeah.
it's on page 34, and it's action point 31 from 2008 and S6 from 1994. It's capacity analysis. And it said to date, no study and it's talking about study of the sustainable capacity of the island and of each of its major sub-areas. And it says taking into consideration such things as impacts on water resources, infrastructure capacity, and it says, to date, no study or analysis has been undertaken to determine sub-area capacities.
So that would be like the capacity of Montclair, the capacity of Silver Beach, like that. It's a good suggestion.
Is there funding available for any of this, and would it be state funding?
You'd have to look. We'd have to ask the grants writer what she thinks is available and what would apply for that.
Would it be helpful in terms of all the other water issues? Would it?
I mean,
It's
it
just
would
another-
probably overlap. It would probably overlap with other studies that we'd need to do.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
So that
it's a good concept,
I mean,
right?
does the town have a hydrologist on retainer or anything right now?
No,
No.
no, not right now. We're looking at that. I believe that's in the governance chapter on a recommendation.
Thank you.
It is, I definitely.
I think it
is. All right, so then what we have left is pretty much Southwold's recommendations. So they're kind of, some of them are really good, some of them just don't apply to us. So it's 8:25. I think we've been here for a while. So if people want to go through, now that you know that they're in the SharePoint, in the chapter, go through and maybe highlight the ones that you think we should adopt or we should put into ours.
Okay.
And then I'll go through before next week is our next one?
It's too soon.
Yeah. So go in and put your comments, and then we'll talk housing next week. So you have time to work on this, more edits, comments, and then I'll try to get it back to everybody before next week, but we'll plan on talking about housing so that you have time to look at this.
That's a lot of work for 1 week. Can't we finish the water with Southold next week and then move on to housing? It seems.
We can. I don't think it's going to take that long to go through this. I mean,
Southhold will be pretty
the
quick. I
Southhold will be
think.
quick.
I do think so.
I mean, because I can look at it and say, okay, well, I would take I take 4 out of 5 in the first section. We don't need the Suffolk County Water Authority. All right. You know, I mean,
There's a lot of stuff you can just X out.
Great.
But it just gives you, food for thought, if
Yeah.
nothing else.
Okay, great.
I would suggest.
I mean, I really do my homework, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suggest going through Southold's plan itself because they quantify and elaborate where necessary.
I will.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll finish this chapter and then do housing next week.
Okay,
Start going through that.
okay, great.
Sound good with everybody? Any motion to go home?
Is there, do we have anybody
Oh,
else?
right.
Zooming in?
Unshare my screen.
Right.
All right. Anyone in the audience?
Anyone still?
Pam.
Hey, good evening, everyone. That seems like you made a lot of changes to these action points, and I don't see how you can just dismiss continuing the discussion on this chapter and moving on to
Right.
housing until we get a chance to look at changes you've made and make our own public suggestions and responses to this. No, and it is kind of disconcerting that Jan's comments only showed up on the comment page today. I don't know, an hour or two before this meeting?
We only made them
I
last
was looking
night.
for updated comments and they would seem to be behind by a couple of weeks. So I mean, if you want the public to be involved, we need to be update on a regular basis and not have all these changes happen. And now you're gonna skip over this and move to housing before this is actually finished. I don't know if I agree with that process here.
But we actually changed that plan. So we are going to finish this chapter next week and then move on to housing.
Okay, because I have a bunch of comments to make. So all of the edits that you just made to this action list are going to be available by when for us to look at it?
Well, that's why I wasn't going to have it on for discussion next week. I was going to take the time to go through and clean it up and repost it. And then we could discuss it that meeting after next week. That way you had time to look at it, but
This chapter is
I
certainly
think
not
this
off
chapter,
the table.
yeah,
I
it's
think
not
we-
done by any means.
I would prefer, listen, it takes me hours to go through the housing. I prefer to, I think,
this and move on,
order.
yeah.
And so I appreciate your comments.
But we say finish, but it's not really finished.
No, no, I
It's just
understand.
give everyone time to incorporate the massive amount of feedback
Right.
and give it a fresh face
Yes, exactly.
for further review. So
Well-
I know we say finish, but
No, we don't need.
we're far from finished and this won't be the last time we look at it.
But just to look at the edited version, the
Correct.
draft that we're being on for 2 hours.
I would like it if these changes got to the consultants and the next time we review this is when the consultants give us their take on this chapter. I think to do another review at this level is.
Not that fruitful.
Well,
See, I
agree,
have to
agree.
disagree with that. I have to
Okay.
disagree with that, BJ. I really do. I mean, instead of having the consultants move on and then the public gets to decide, then it's got to go back to the consultants. You're paying more for the consultants to go over things that I think we could settle in-house before it goes to them. You know, and there are a lot of conversations that did not take place over the things that are missing from the 94 plan in this new chapter. You know, Mr. Clark mentioned it at the last meeting, and all you did tonight was go over action points and not a whole lot of other things that have been taken out of this draft legislation. So,
Okay. So we're going to do that at the next meeting.
okay.
So Lily made that request, so we're going to do it.
Thank you.
No problems.
And
Okay,
thank
thank
you,
you.
Sam.
Yeah. Kim?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think a lot of good work was done at the meeting tonight, but I still feel that your main priority is getting this done really fast before people have to leave the town board, instead of caring about the substance and the public input. That just comes across so clearly, and I'm so sorry to say it to you because I know you're working really hard, but there are so many things that the town board is doing legislatively as we speak. And it seems to me that the comprehensive task force has been asked to please confirm and make sure what this administration wants gets authorized by the comp plan that's being written. I am really sorry to have to say this because I see the intelligence and I see the effort, and I want to commend Sean Clark for his comment about getting a hydrologist. And I want to ask the consultants, are you just writing or are you analyzing? Do you have people working for you that are scientists? Do you have people working for you that have looked at an island? I was particularly disappointed with the surface waters discussion in the chapter 5 tonight. It is so unspecific about our particular bays and harbors. It is so void of any comment on commercial use and the incredible changes that are going to occur in our waters, 45 miles of coastline that are undergoing climate change. I just find it really inadequate. Again, I am very sorry to be so oppositional to all your hard work, but I think it's time to wake up and realize that the comprehensive plan needs huge attention by all parts of our community and it can't be rushed through. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Kim. Hopefully we can address your concerns next week.
Commercial,
Stephen?
commercial use of waters.
Hi, I just want to comment on the process, particularly in terms of public comments, because among the comments that weren't made public until very shortly before the meeting were comments that were received on April 25th, May 3rd, May 4th, May 14th. Oh, no, I'm sorry. May 14th was just over the weekend. May 5th and May 8th. And I think for both your sake and the public's sake, and particularly to try to keep this an open process, it would be very helpful if you could commit to ideally the day before, or at least the morning of the next meeting, to make public whatever comments have been received. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Is this a manpower issue? Is that what the problem is?
Yeah, sometimes it's just timing and staffing.
I mean, some of those
I
were
mean-
a week before, they had plenty of time.
But we could have
So,
set
I
it
mean,
up
and
for
it's
May
not like,
7th.
it's not like
We
they
didn't
go
have
away.
to-
It's not like, these comments, just because we didn't have them at this specific meeting, doesn't mean that they're not going to get discussed or.
Understand,
No, no, but the
understand.
people-
But I mean, the public perception is that,
Right.
they're not being.
Well, I mean, and some people, like, for example, we got a comment on April 25th about economic development. That's not the topic we were talking about, So people continuously comment on the chapters, and it's not always the chapter that we're discussing, but it's a comment that we're taking into account, and we're going to pass it on, and we're going to send it to the consultant. So just because it wasn't posted before this specific meeting doesn't mean it's not addressed or followed through with.
I understand that.
I just want everybody to understand, And Coco tries to post them as.
I posted in the same way since starting September 27th, 2022. I do it the day of the meeting. So if you want it the week before, I can do that. I can do it anytime, but nothing has changed since September 27th, 2022. Sorry.
Thank you, Coco.
Thanks, Coco.
Okay, so now we could.
So we have a plan, we know what we're doing, okay.
We can post them a day ahead, the meeting.
Well, no, because if the
Pam
meeting's
said
on
that's not
Monday, we're
enough
not
time.
posting it on Sunday, so you'll get it posted on a Monday.
Right, on Friday, yeah.
Because-
But Pam said that's not
Maybe we
time.
should wait till Friday, maybe do it.
Do Friday.
Maybe.
Okay, so what?
We're gonna do Friday, yeah, Friday.
Weekend comments will not be.
enough time.
And she's
probably right, yeah.
Let's post it Friday.
We could tell people so they won't be disappointed.
All right, anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn.